Have you ever been in a situation where someone's words or actions made your blood boil, and you felt the urge to lash out? Maybe it was a rude comment, a frustrating coworker, or even a stranger cutting you off in traffic. In those moments, staying calm feels almost impossible. But what if I told you that the key to mastering your emotions in the face of provocation has been around for centuries, written by one of history's greatest minds? Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, faced countless challenges and provocations during his reign, yet he remained a beacon of calm and wisdom. In his personal writings, known as Meditations, he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Today, we're going to explore how Marcus Aurelius' timeless principles like emotional detachment, shifting your perspective, and building resilience can help you stay calm when provoked. By the end of this video, you'll have practical tools to transform how you respond to life's challenges, no matter how frustrating they may seem. So, let's dive in and discover how to cultivate the kind of inner peace that even Marcus Aurelius would admire. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." This simple yet profound idea lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. External events are neutral. They don't inherently carry meaning or emotion. It's our judgments, our perceptions, that give them power. Think about it. When someone cuts you off in traffic, the event itself is just a car changing lanes. But your mind might interpret it as a personal attack, a sign of disrespect, or even a reflection of the world's chaos. That interpretation, not the event itself, is what sparks your anger or frustration. Let's take a modern example. Imagine you send a text to a friend and they don't reply right away. Your mind might start spinning stories. Are they ignoring me? Did I say something wrong? But in reality, they could be busy, distracted, or simply haven't seen the message yet. The delay itself is neutral. It's your assumptions that create the emotional turmoil. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that we have the power to pause and question those assumptions. Instead of jumping to conclusions, we can choose to see the situation for what it is, not what we fear it might be. This shift in perception is incredibly liberating. When you realize that your emotions are shaped by your thoughts, not the events themselves, you gain control over how you respond. So here's a question to reflect on. How often do you let your assumptions dictate your reactions? The next time you feel provoked, take a moment to ask yourself, is this event truly causing my distress, or is it the story I'm telling myself about it? By mastering this skill, you can start to cultivate the kind of calm that Marcus Aurelius championed. A calm rooted not in avoiding challenges, but in understanding the true source of your emotions. Now, let's explore one of the most powerful tools in Stoic philosophy, the dichotomy of control. This idea, central to Stoicism, teaches us to focus our energy only on what we can control and let go of what we cannot. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, put it simply, "Some things are within our power while others are not. Our thoughts, our actions, our choices, these are within our control. But the actions of others, external events, even the weather, these are not." Marcus Aurelius lived by this principle, reminding himself daily that he couldn't control how others behaved, but he could always control how he responded. Imagine you're at work and a coworker snaps at you during a meeting. Your first instinct might be to snap back, to defend yourself, or to stew in frustration for the rest of the day. But here's the thing, their rudeness is outside your control. You can't dictate how they act or what they say. What you can control is how you choose to respond. Do you let their words dictate your mood, or do you take a deep breath, remind yourself of your values, and respond with calm and clarity? Marcus Aurelius would urge you to focus on the latter. He wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, don't let someone else's negativity pull you down to their level. Rise above it by staying true to your principles. Let's break this down with a practical exercise. Think about a recent situation where someone provoked you. Maybe it was a rude comment, a frustrating interaction, or even a minor inconvenience. Now, ask yourself, what was within my control in that moment? Perhaps it was your tone of voice, your body language, or even the decision to walk away and cool off. And what was outside your control? Their words, their attitude, their choices. By separating these two, you can start to see where your power truly lies. This isn't about ignoring your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that your peace of mind doesn't have to depend on external circumstances. When you focus on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your perspective, you reclaim your power. And that's where true calm begins. So the next time you feel provoked, take a moment to pause and ask yourself, what's within my control here? You might be surprised at how much freedom this simple question can bring. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed." Don't feel harmed and you haven't been. This idea of emotional detachment is one of the cornerstones of Stoic philosophy, and it's not about shutting down your feelings or becoming indifferent to the world around you. Instead, it's about creating a mental space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. Think of it like this: when someone provokes you, their words or actions are like a stone thrown into a pond. The ripples are inevitable, but you don't have to let those ripples pull you under. You can observe them, acknowledge them, and then let them settle without being swept away by the turbulence. For Marcus Aurelius, detachment was a way to see provocation not as a personal attack, but as an opportunity for growth. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very things that challenge us, the rude comments, the frustrating interactions, the moments of tension, are the very things that can teach us patience, resilience, and self-control. When you detach from the emotional charge of a situation, you create room to respond with clarity and purpose rather than reacting impulsively. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're in the middle of an argument with a loved one. Emotions are running high and every word feels like a jab. In that moment, it's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment, to say things you don't mean, or to let anger take the wheel. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused? What if you took a step back mentally and emotionally and asked yourself, what's really going on here? What's at the heart of this conflict? By detaching from the immediate emotional reaction, you give yourself the chance to respond with understanding rather than hostility. You might even find that the argument loses its power over you, and you can address the issue with calm and compassion. This kind of detachment isn't about suppressing your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that your emotions are valid, but they don't have to control you. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that we have the power to choose how we engage with our feelings. We can let them dictate our actions, or we can observe them, learn from them, and then decide how to move forward. So, here's a question to reflect on. What would it feel like to respond to provocation with calm instead of anger? Picture yourself in a situation where someone's words or actions could easily set you off. Instead of reacting, you take a deep breath, remind yourself of your values, and respond with clarity and composure. How would that change the dynamic? How would it change you? By practicing emotional detachment, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're building a stronger, more resilient version of yourself, one who can face life's challenges with the kind of calm that Marcus Aurelius himself would admire. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are." This idea of pausing before reacting is one of the most practical tools he offers us. In the heat of the moment, when emotions are running high, it's easy to let anger or frustration take the wheel. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us that we don't have to react immediately. We can choose to pause, to breathe, and to reflect before we respond. This small act of pausing can be the difference between a reaction you regret and a response you're proud of. Think about a time when you received criticism, whether it was from a boss, a friend, or even a stranger online. Your first instinct might have been to defend yourself, to argue, or to lash out. But what if, instead of reacting right away, you took a moment to pause? What if you allowed yourself to breathe deeply, to let the initial wave of emotion pass, and then considered the feedback with a clear mind? That pause gives you the space to separate the criticism from your emotional reaction. It allows you to ask yourself, is there truth in what's being said? Can I learn from this, or is this simply someone else's opinion that doesn't define me? Here's a simple exercise to try the next time you feel provoked. Take 3 deep breaths. Inhale slowly through your nose, hold it for a moment, and then exhale through your mouth. As you breathe, remind yourself that you have the power to choose how you respond. This small pause can help you regain control of your emotions and approach the situation with clarity rather than impulsiveness. Marcus Aurelius understood that our initial reactions are often driven by instinct, not reason. By pausing, we give ourselves the chance to align our actions with our values rather than being swept away by the moment. He wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion." There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control. In other words, you don't have to react to everything that happens to you. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all, at least not until you've had time to reflect. So, here's a question to consider. How could a pause change your next interaction? Imagine you're in a tense conversation and the other person says something that triggers you. Instead of firing back, you take a moment to breathe and gather your thoughts. How might that shift the dynamic? How might it change the way you feel about yourself afterward? By practicing this simple habit of pausing, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're cultivating a deeper sense of self-control and inner peace. And that's a skill that will serve you well in every area of your life. This isn't about suppressing your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about giving yourself the space to respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that every moment of provocation is an opportunity to practice this skill. So, the next time you feel the urge to react, remember, pause, breathe, and choose your response with intention. It's a small step, but one that can lead to profound changes in how you navigate life's challenges. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle is the way." This simple phrase captures a profound truth. The challenges we face, including moments of provocation, are not just obstacles to overcome, they are opportunities to grow. For Marcus Aurelius, every difficult interaction, every frustrating moment was a test of character. He saw adversity not as something to avoid, but as a teacher, a chance to practice patience, resilience, and self-mastery. When someone provokes you, it's easy to see it as a personal attack or an unfair burden. But what if you could reframe it as a chance to strengthen your inner resolve? Let's take a real-life example. Imagine you're in a heated debate with a colleague. The conversation is tense, and it feels like they're deliberately trying to push your buttons. Your instinct might be to argue back, to prove your point, or to walk away in frustration. But what if, instead of seeing this as a battle to win, you saw it as an opportunity to practice patience and understanding? What if you approached the conversation with curiosity, asking yourself, what can I learn from this person's perspective? How can I respond in a way that aligns with my values? By reframing the situation, you shift from seeing it as a threat to seeing it as a chance to grow. This mindset doesn't just reduce emotional turmoil, it transforms it. When you view provocation as a test of character, you stop seeing the other person as the problem and start seeing your own reactions as the focus. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that we can't control how others behave, but we can always control how we respond. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, the way we think about challenges shapes who we become. If we see provocation as an opportunity to practice calm and clarity, we strengthen our ability to handle future challenges with grace. Here's a practical way to apply this. The next time you feel provoked, pause and ask yourself, what is this moment teaching me? Maybe it's teaching you patience, or the importance of listening, or the value of staying true to your principles. By shifting your focus from what's happening to you to what you can learn from it, you take control of the narrative. You're no longer a victim of circumstance, you're an active participant in your own growth. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can you see provocation as a chance to grow? Think about a recent situation where someone's words or actions tested your patience. Instead of focusing on the frustration, consider what that moment revealed about your own strengths and areas for improvement. By reframing provocation as an opportunity, you're not just surviving life's challenges, you're thriving through them. And that's the kind of mindset that Marcus Aurelius would encourage us all to cultivate. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When someone does you wrong, immediately consider what good or harm they thought they were doing." Once you see that, you'll feel compassion instead of anger or rage. This idea of empathy, of seeing the humanity in others, even when they provoke us, is one of the most transformative tools in Stoic philosophy. It's not about excusing bad behavior or letting people walk all over you. It's about recognizing that everyone is fighting their own battles, and sometimes their actions are a reflection of their struggles, not a personal attack on you. Think about a time when someone snapped at you or acted rudely. Maybe it was a family member who was unusually short-tempered, or a co-worker who seemed to take out their frustrations on you. In those moments, it's easy to take their behavior personally, to feel hurt or angry. But what if, instead of reacting, you pause to consider what might be going on in their life? Maybe they're dealing with stress, grief, or exhaustion. Maybe they're carrying a burden you can't see. By shifting your focus from how their actions affect you to what might be driving those actions, you create space for understanding rather than conflict. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're at a family gathering and a relative makes a snide comment about your career choices. Your first instinct might be to defend yourself or fire back with a sharp retort. But what if instead you took a moment to consider why they might have said that? Maybe they're feeling insecure about their own choices, or maybe they're projecting their fears onto you. By seeing their comment as a reflection of their inner world, rather than a judgment on yours, you can respond with compassion instead of anger. This doesn't mean you have to agree with them or let their words go unchallenged. It simply means you're choosing to engage with understanding rather than hostility. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that empathy is a form of strength, not weakness. He wrote, "It's a mark of a good character to take responsibility for your own actions and to let others take responsibility for theirs." In other words, you can't control how others behave, but you can control how you respond. By choosing empathy, you're not just diffusing anger, you're fostering a sense of calm and connection, even in the face of provocation. So, here's a question to reflect on. What might be going on in the other person's life to provoke them? The next time someone's words or actions upset you, take a moment to consider their perspective. What challenges might they be facing? What emotions might be driving their behavior? By practicing empathy, you're not just improving your relationships, you're cultivating a deeper sense of inner peace. and that's a skill that will serve you well in every area of your life. This approach doesn't mean you have to tolerate mistreatment or ignore your own feelings. It's about finding a balance between standing up for yourself and understanding others. Marcus Aurelius would encourage us to see every interaction as an opportunity to practice compassion, even when it's difficult. By doing so, you're not just responding to provocation, you're transforming it into a moment of growth and connection. And that's the kind of calm that truly lasts. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." This simple yet profound practice of gratitude was a cornerstone of his Stoic philosophy. For Marcus, gratitude wasn't just a fleeting feeling. It was a deliberate habit, a way of training the mind to focus on what's good, even in the face of life's challenges. When you're feeling provoked or overwhelmed, it's easy to fixate on what's going wrong. But what if, instead of dwelling on the frustration, you shifted your focus to what's going right? That's the power of gratitude. It doesn't erase the difficulties, but it gives you a new lens to see them through. Let's take a moment to unpack this. Imagine you've had a particularly stressful day. Maybe you've been dealing with a difficult coworker, a mountain of deadlines, or even just the chaos of everyday life. It's easy to feel drained, irritated, or even defeated. But what if, in the midst of that stress, you pause to reflect on what's still good? Maybe it's the fact that you have a job that challenges you, or the support of a friend who listened when you needed to vent. Maybe it's something as simple as the warmth of the sun on your face or the taste of your favorite coffee. By focusing on these small moments of gratitude, you create a mental shift, a reminder that even on the hardest days, there's still something to appreciate. Marcus Aurelius believed that gratitude could transform how we experience life's challenges. He wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very things that frustrate us can also teach us resilience, patience, and perspective. When you practice gratitude, you're not ignoring the difficulties. You're choosing to see them as opportunities for growth. This mindset doesn't just help you stay calm in the moment. It builds a foundation of inner strength that can carry you through future challenges. Here's a practical way to bring this into your daily life. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand or life-changing sometimes. It's the small, everyday moments that matter most. Maybe it's a kind word from a stranger, a moment of quiet reflection, or even the fact that you made it through the day. By making this a regular practice, you train your mind to seek out the good, even when things feel tough. So, let's try it now. Take a moment to think, what are 3 things you're grateful for right now? It could be something big, like the support of loved ones, or something small, like the comfort of your favorite sweater. By focusing on these moments of gratitude, you're not just shifting your mindset, you're building a habit of calm and resilience that Marcus Aurelius himself would admire. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes to find peace, even in the midst of provocation. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect or ignoring your struggles. It's about finding balance, acknowledging the challenges while also recognizing the good. When you cultivate gratitude, you're not just surviving life's difficulties, you're thriving through them, one small moment of appreciation at a time. And that's a skill that can transform not just how you respond to provocation, but how you experience life itself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it." This simple observation underscores the importance of patience, a virtue he held in the highest regard. For Marcus, patience wasn't just about waiting. It was about enduring difficulties with grace, about refusing to let frustration dictate your actions. In the face of provocation, patience becomes a shield, protecting you from the impulsive reactions that often lead to regret. It's the space between what happens and how you respond, a moment of clarity that allows you to choose your next move with intention rather than emotion. Think about a time when you were stuck in a long line at the grocery store or waiting for a delayed flight. The longer you waited, the more your frustration grew until even the smallest inconvenience felt unbearable. In those moments, it's easy to let impatience take over, to snap at the cashier or grumble under your breath. But what if, instead of letting frustration build, you used that time to practice patience? What if you saw the delay not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity to pause, to breathe, and to reflect? Marcus Aurelius would remind us that patience isn't passive, it's an active choice to remain calm, even when everything around you feels chaotic. Let's take this idea a step further with an example. Imagine you're in a meeting and a colleague keeps interrupting you, dismissing your ideas or talking over you. Your first instinct might be to interrupt them back, to assert yourself, or to let your frustration show. But what if, instead of reacting, you chose to wait? What if you let them finish, took a deep breath, and then calmly restated your point? By practicing patience, you not only maintain your composure, but you also demonstrate respect for yourself and for the other person. This kind of patience doesn't mean you're weak or passive. It means you're in control of your emotions, and that's a powerful position to be in. Marcus Aurelius believed that patience was a form of strength, a way to rise above the chaos of the moment. He wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, because an artful life requires being prepared to meet and withstand sudden and unexpected attacks." In other words, life will always throw challenges your way, but patience gives you the resilience to face them without losing your balance. It's not about avoiding conflict or pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing how you engage with the challenges that come your way. So here's a question to reflect on. How can patience help you stay calm when provoked? Think about a recent situation where impatience might have led to frustration or conflict. What would it have looked like to approach that moment with patience instead? By cultivating this virtue, you're not just improving your ability to handle provocation, you're building a foundation of inner strength that can carry you through life's challenges with grace and resilience. And that's a skill worth practicing every day. This approach doesn't mean you have to tolerate mistreatment or ignore your own needs. It's about finding a balance between standing up for yourself and maintaining your composure. Marcus Aurelius would encourage us to see every moment of provocation as an opportunity to practice patience, to respond with clarity and calm rather than reacting in haste. By doing so, you're not just navigating the challenges of the moment, you're transforming them into opportunities for growth and self-mastery, and that's the kind of calm that truly lasts. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The less we say, the more we preserve our peace." This simple yet profound idea highlights the power of silence, a tool that, when used wisely, can prevent unnecessary conflict and maintain inner calm. In a world where words are often used as weapons, silence becomes a shield, protecting us from the chaos of arguments, misunderstandings, and emotional turmoil. For Marcus, silence wasn't about avoiding communication. It was about choosing when to speak and when to hold back, ensuring that every word served a purpose. Think about a time when someone said something hurtful or provocative. Your first instinct might have been to fire back, to defend yourself, or to prove them wrong. But what if, instead of reacting, you chose silence? What if you let their words hang in the air, unanswered, and allowed the moment to pass without escalating the tension? Marcus Aurelius believed that silence was a form of strength, a way to rise above the noise and maintain your composure. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one." In other words, actions and sometimes the absence of words speak louder than arguments ever could. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're in a group setting and someone starts gossiping about a mutual friend. The conversation is tempting. It's easy to join in, to add your own opinions, or even to defend the person being talked about. But what if, instead of engaging, you chose to stay silent? By not participating, you're not just avoiding gossip, you're setting a boundary, showing that you value respect and integrity over fleeting social approval. This kind of silence isn't passive. It's a deliberate choice to uphold your values even when it's uncomfortable. Marcus Aurelius understood that silence could be a powerful tool for maintaining relationships and personal integrity. He wrote, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." In other words, not every provocation deserves a response. By choosing silence, you're not ignoring the situation. You're refusing to let it control you. You're preserving your peace and, in many cases, diffusing the tension before it can escalate. So, here's a question to reflect on. When has staying silent helped you avoid conflict? Think about a time when you chose not to engage, even though it might have been easier to react. How did that decision impact the situation? How did it impact you? By practicing the power of silence, you're not just avoiding unnecessary arguments, you're cultivating a deeper sense of calm and self-control. And that's a skill that can transform how you navigate life's challenges, one quiet moment at a time. This approach doesn't mean you have to stay silent in the face of injustice or mistreatment. It's about knowing when to speak and when to hold back, when to engage and when to let go. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that silence, when used with intention, is a form of strength, a way to protect your peace and uphold your values, even in the midst of provocation. By mastering this skill, you're not just responding to life's challenges, you're rising above them with the kind of calm and clarity that Marcus Aurelius himself would admire. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." This powerful idea reminds us that true peace isn't something we find outside ourselves, it's something we cultivate within. No matter how chaotic the world around us becomes, we always have the ability to retreat into our own minds, to find stillness and clarity even in the midst of turmoil. For Marcus, inner peace wasn't a luxury or a distant goal. It was a daily practice, a choice to focus on what he could control and let go of what he couldn't. Let's break this down with a practical example. Imagine you're having one of those days where everything seems to go wrong. Your alarm didn't go off, you spilled coffee on your shirt, and now you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. The stress is building and it feels like the world is conspiring against you. In that moment, it's easy to let frustration take over, to feel like you're at the mercy of external events. But what if, instead of reacting to the chaos, you paused and turned inward? What if you took a few deep breaths, closed your eyes, and reminded yourself that your peace doesn't depend on the traffic, the spilled coffee, or even the meeting? That's the essence of Marcus Aurelius' approach. Inner peace is a choice, not a reaction. This doesn't mean ignoring your problems or pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that your emotional state doesn't have to be dictated by external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius believed that the mind is like a fortress. No matter what's happening outside, you can always retreat inside and find calm. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." By focusing on your thoughts and reactions rather than the events themselves, you reclaim your power and create a sense of peace that no external chaos can shake. So here's a question to reflect on. What practices help you cultivate inner peace? Maybe it's meditation, journaling, or simply taking a few moments each day to breathe deeply and center yourself. Whatever it is, the key is consistency, making it a regular part of your routine, so that when life gets overwhelming, you have a well of calm to draw from. Let's take meditation as an example. Imagine you're sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, letting go of the day's stresses one exhale at a time. In that moment, you're not thinking about the traffic, the spilled coffee, or the meeting. You're simply present, grounded in the here and now. This practice doesn't just help you in the moment, it builds a foundation of inner peace that you can carry with you throughout the day. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that inner peace isn't about avoiding challenges or living in a bubble of calm. It's about finding stillness within yourself, even when the world around you is anything but still. By cultivating this kind of peace, you're not just surviving life's chaos, you're thriving through it, with a sense of calm and clarity that no external event can take away. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed, remember, peace isn't something you find, it's something you create. And with practice, you can build a sanctuary of calm within yourself, one breath, one moment, one choice at a time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig." This simple yet profound statement underscores the importance of self-awareness, a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy and a key tool for staying calm when provoked. Self-awareness isn't just about knowing your strengths and weaknesses. It's about understanding your emotional triggers, the things that push your buttons and pull you away from calm. For Marcus, this kind of introspection wasn't a one-time exercise. It was a daily practice, a way to stay grounded and in control, no matter what life threw at him. Let's break this down with a practical example. Imagine you're in a meeting and a colleague criticizes your idea in front of everyone. Your heart starts racing, your face feels hot, and you can feel the anger bubbling up. In that moment, it's easy to react impulsively, to snap back, to defend yourself, or to shut down entirely. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused and asked yourself, why does this bother me so much? Is it the criticism itself or the way it was delivered? Is it the fear of being judged or the frustration of not being heard? By digging into these questions, you start to uncover your emotional triggers, the underlying reasons why certain situations provoke you. Marcus Aurelius believed that self-awareness was the first step toward emotional mastery. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. In other words, when you understand what sets you off, you gain the power to choose how you respond. You're no longer at the mercy of your emotions. Instead, you can pause, reflect, and decide on a course of action that aligns with your values. Here's how this might play out in real life. Let's say you've noticed that you tend to lose your temper when you feel disrespected. Maybe it's a rude comment from a stranger or a dismissive tone from a coworker. Instead of letting that anger take over, you can use your self-awareness to recognize the trigger and respond differently. You might take a deep breath, remind yourself that their behavior is about them, not you, and choose to respond with calm and clarity. Over time, this practice becomes a habit, and you'll find that you're less likely to be thrown off balance by provocation. So, here's a question to reflect on. What are your emotional triggers and how can you manage them? Think about the situations that tend to provoke you, whether it's criticism, feeling ignored, or something else entirely. By identifying these triggers, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're building a deeper understanding of yourself, one that empowers you to stay calm and composed even in the face of provocation. This approach doesn't mean you have to suppress your emotions or pretend everything is fine. It's about recognizing your triggers and choosing how to engage with them. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that self-awareness is a form of strength, a way to take control of your emotional responses and cultivate the kind of inner peace that no external event can shake. By practicing this skill, you're not just responding to life's challenges, you're transforming them into opportunities for growth and self-mastery. And that's a skill worth cultivating every single day. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." This idea of self-reflection was central to his practice of journaling, a habit he used to examine his reactions, process his emotions, and cultivate inner calm. His personal writings, later compiled as meditations, weren't meant for anyone else to read. They were a private space for him to reflect, learn, and grow. For Marcus, journaling wasn't just a way to vent, it was a tool for self-improvement, a way to step back and see his thoughts and actions with clarity. Think about the last time you felt provoked. Maybe it was a heated argument, a frustrating interaction, or even a moment of self-doubt. In those moments, emotions can feel overwhelming, clouding your judgment and making it hard to see the bigger picture. Journaling offers a way to untangle those emotions, to put them into words and examine them objectively. When you write about a frustrating day, for example, you're not just reliving the experience, you're processing it, breaking it down into manageable pieces, and gaining insight into what triggered your reaction. Let's take a closer look at how this works. Imagine you've had a particularly challenging day at work. A colleague criticized your project, a deadline got moved up, and you left feeling drained and frustrated. Instead of carrying that frustration into the evening, you sit down with a journal and write about what happened. As you put your thoughts on paper, you start to notice patterns. Maybe the criticism stung because it touched on a fear of failure, or maybe the stress of the deadline made you more sensitive than usual. By reflecting on these details, you gain a clearer understanding of your emotions and how they influence your reactions. Marcus Aurelius believed that writing was a way to hold a mirror up to the soul. He wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, because an artful life requires being prepared to meet and withstand sudden and unexpected attacks." In other words, life will always throw challenges your way, but journaling gives you the tools to face them with clarity and composure. It's not about avoiding conflict or pretending everything is fine. It's about understanding your emotions so you can respond with intention rather than impulsiveness. So here's a question to reflect on. How could journaling help you respond better to provocation? Think about a recent situation where you felt frustrated or upset. What would it look like to write about that experience, to explore your emotions and uncover the lessons hidden within? By making journaling a regular practice, you're not just processing your emotions, you're building a foundation of self-awareness and resilience that can help you stay calm, even in the face of life's challenges. This approach doesn't mean you have to write pages every day. Even a few sentences can make a difference, helping you pause, reflect, and gain perspective. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that the act of writing is a form of self-care, a way to nurture your mind and soul. By taking the time to journal, you're not just responding to life's difficulties, you're transforming them into opportunities for growth and self-mastery. And that's a practice worth embracing, one word at a time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Pride is a master of deception. When you think you're occupied in the weightiest business, that's when he has you in his spell." This observation cuts to the heart of why humility is such a powerful tool for staying calm when provoked. For Marcus, humility wasn't about downplaying your worth or shrinking from challenges. It was about seeing yourself clearly without the distortions of ego. When you approach conflicts with humility, you're less likely to take things personally, less likely to feel the need to prove yourself, and more likely to respond with calm and clarity. Think about a time when you were in an argument and both sides were digging in their heels, refusing to back down. Maybe it was a disagreement with a partner, a clash with a coworker, or even a heated debate online. In those moments, it's easy to let pride take over, to feel like admitting fault or seeing the other person's perspective would mean losing. But what if, instead of clinging to your position, you chose humility? What if you said, "You know what, I might have been wrong about that," or "I see where you're coming from"? That simple act of humility can diffuse tension, open the door to understanding, and prevent the conflict from spiraling out of control. Let's take this idea a step further with an example. Imagine you're working on a team project and a colleague points out a mistake in your work. Your first instinct might be to defend yourself, to explain why you made the choice you did, or even to shift the blame. But what if, instead of reacting defensively, you said, "You're right, I missed that, thanks for catching it." By acknowledging the mistake, you're not just showing humility, you're also demonstrating confidence in your ability to learn and grow. This kind of humility doesn't make you weak, it makes you stronger because it frees you from the need to always be right. Marcus Aurelius believed that humility was a shield against the chaos of the world. He wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." In other words, when you let go of pride and ego, you create space for calm and clarity. You're no longer fighting to protect your self-image. Instead, you're focused on finding solutions and building connections. This mindset doesn't just help you stay calm in conflicts, it also fosters trust and respect in your relationships. So here's a question to reflect on. How can humility help you stay calm in conflicts? Think about a recent disagreement where pride might have gotten in the way. What would it have looked like to approach that situation with humility? By practicing this virtue, you're not just avoiding unnecessary arguments, you're building a foundation of inner strength and resilience that can carry you through life's challenges with grace. And that's a skill worth cultivating, one humble moment at a time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Concentrate every minute like a Roman, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice." This call to focus on the present moment is at the core of mindfulness, a practice that can transform how we respond to provocation. For Marcus, mindfulness wasn't just about being aware of the present. It was about fully engaging with it, letting go of distractions, and approaching each moment with intention. When we're mindful, we're less likely to get caught up in the whirlwind of emotions that provocation can stir. Instead, we stay grounded, focused, and in control. Let's break this down with a practical example. Imagine you're in a high-stakes meeting and tensions are running high. A colleague challenges your idea, and their tone feels dismissive or even confrontational. Your heart starts to race and your mind begins to spiral. What if they're right? What if everyone thinks your idea is flawed? In that moment, mindfulness can be your anchor. Instead of getting swept up in the storm of thoughts and emotions, you bring your attention back to the present. You notice the sensation of your breath, the feel of the chair beneath you, the sound of your colleague's voice. By grounding yourself in the here and now, you create a mental space where you can respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Mindfulness doesn't just help in professional settings, it's equally powerful in everyday life. Think about a time when someone cut you off in traffic. Your first instinct might be to honk, yell, or let the frustration ruin your mood. But what if, instead of reacting, you took a moment to pause and focus on the present? You might notice the grip of your hands on the steering wheel, the rhythm of your breathing, or even the scenery around you. By shifting your attention to the present, you interrupt the cycle of anger and frustration, giving yourself the chance to respond with calm instead of chaos. Marcus Aurelius believed that mindfulness was a way to reclaim our power over our thoughts and emotions. He wrote, "The present moment is all you have. Make it your refuge." In other words, when we focus on the here and now, we're less likely to be pulled into the past where regrets and resentments live, or the future where worries and anxieties thrive. By staying present, we create a buffer against the emotional triggers that provocation can bring. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can mindfulness help you stay calm when provoked? Think about a recent situation where you felt your emotions starting to spiral. What would it have looked like to bring your attention back to the present? By practicing mindfulness, you're not just avoiding overreactions, you're building a habit of calm and clarity that can carry you through life's challenges with grace. This approach doesn't mean ignoring your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about creating a mental space where you can observe your feelings without being overwhelmed by them. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that mindfulness is a form of strength, a way to stay grounded and centered even in the face of provocation. By cultivating this practice, you're not just responding to life's difficulties, you're transforming them into opportunities for growth and self-mastery. And that's a skill worth embracing, one mindful moment at a time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Everything that happens is as normal and expected as the spring rose or the summer fruit." This is true of sickness, death, slander, conspiracy, and all things that delight or trouble foolish men. This idea of perspective was one of his most powerful tools for staying calm in the face of provocation. For Marcus, perspective wasn't just about seeing the bigger picture. It was about understanding that most of the things that upset us are fleeting, insignificant in the grand scheme of life. When we zoom out, the problems that feel overwhelming in the moment often shrink, revealing their true scale. Let's take a closer look at how this works. Imagine you're in the middle of a heated argument with a loved one. Emotions are running high and every word feels like a dagger. In that moment, it's easy to lose sight of everything else, your history together, the love you share, the countless moments of connection that define your relationship. But what if, instead of focusing on the conflict, you zoomed out? What if you reminded yourself that this argument is just one moment in a lifetime of shared experiences? Suddenly, the tension doesn't feel so insurmountable. It becomes a small blip in a much larger story, something you can navigate with patience and understanding. This shift in perspective doesn't just apply to personal relationships, it's equally powerful in professional settings. Think about a time when a coworker criticized your work or took credit for your idea. In the heat of the moment, it's easy to feel angry, betrayed, or even defeated. But what if you stepped back and asked yourself, how much will this matter in a week? A month, a year, chances are the sting of that moment will fade, and what will remain are the lessons you learned and the resilience you built. By zooming out, you're not dismissing your feelings, you're putting them in context, allowing yourself to respond with calm rather than react with frustration. Marcus Aurelius believed that perspective was a way to reclaim our peace of mind. He wrote, "Keep before your eyes the rapidity with which all things pass away and are no more, the vast abyss of time that has already swallowed them." In other words, when we remind ourselves of the impermanence of life, the things that provoke us lose their power. They become smaller, more manageable, and easier to let go of. This mindset doesn't just help us stay calm, it helps us focus on what truly matters, the things that endure long after the moment of provocation has passed. So here's a question to reflect on. How can a broader perspective help you stay calm? Think about a recent situation where you felt provoked. What would it look like to zoom out and see that moment in the context of your life as a whole? By practicing this shift in perspective, you're not just avoiding overreactions, you're building a habit of calm and clarity that can carry you through life's challenges with grace. This approach doesn't mean ignoring your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about creating a mental space where you can observe your feelings without being overwhelmed by them. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that perspective is a form of strength, a way to stay grounded and centered even in the face of provocation. By cultivating this practice, you're not just responding to life's difficulties, you're transforming them into opportunities for growth and self-mastery. And that's a skill worth embracing, one moment of perspective at a time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This simple yet profound statement reflects his belief in the virtue of courage, not just the kind of courage that faces physical danger, but the moral courage to stand firm in the face of adversity, to speak the truth even when it's uncomfortable, and to act with integrity even when it's easier to look away. For Marcus, courage wasn't about grand gestures or heroic acts. It was about the quiet strength to face life's challenges with calm and clarity, especially when provoked. Think about a time when you had to confront a difficult truth. Maybe it was admitting a mistake at work, having an uncomfortable conversation with a loved one, or standing up for what you believed in, even when it wasn't popular. In those moments, it's easy to let fear take over, fear of judgment, fear of conflict, or even fear of failure. But courage allows you to move past that fear, to respond with calm and conviction rather than reacting with defensiveness or avoidance. Marcus Aurelius believed that this kind of courage was essential for living a virtuous life. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very things that scare us, the difficult conversations, the uncomfortable truths, are the things that can help us grow if we have the courage to face them. Let's take this idea a step further with an example. Imagine you're in a meeting and your team is discussing a project that's heading in the wrong direction. You know the plan has flaws, but speaking up might mean challenging your boss or risking criticism from your colleagues. It's tempting to stay silent to avoid the potential fallout. But what if, instead of letting fear dictate your actions, you chose courage? What if you calmly and respectfully shared your concerns, not to prove a point, but to help the team succeed? By acting with courage, you're not just standing up for what's right, you're also modeling the kind of calm, thoughtful response that Marcus Aurelius would admire. This kind of courage doesn't mean being fearless. It means acknowledging your fear and choosing to act anyway. Marcus Aurelius understood that fear is a natural part of life, but it doesn't have to control us. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." When you approach provocation with courage, you're not ignoring your emotions, you're choosing to rise above them, to respond with clarity and purpose rather than reacting impulsively. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can courage help you stay calm in tough situations? Think about a recent moment where fear might have held you back, whether it was speaking up, standing your ground, or facing a difficult truth. What would it have looked like to approach that moment with courage? By cultivating this virtue, you're not just building resilience, you're creating a foundation of inner strength that can carry you through life's challenges with grace and confidence. This approach doesn't mean you have to face every challenge head-on or ignore your emotions. It's about finding the balance between acknowledging your fear and choosing to act with integrity. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that courage is a form of strength, a way to stay grounded and centered, even in the face of provocation. By practicing this skill, you're not just responding to life's difficulties, you're transforming them into opportunities for growth and self-mastery. And that's a skill worth embracing, one courageous step at a time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This idea of forgiveness wasn't just about letting go of grudges, it was about reclaiming your peace of mind. For Marcus, forgiveness wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a deliberate choice to rise above the hurt and refuse to let someone else's actions dictate your emotional state. When you forgive, you're not excusing the behavior or pretending it didn't hurt. You're simply choosing to release the hold it has on you, freeing yourself from the emotional weight of resentment. Think about a time when someone said something hurtful, maybe a friend lashed out in anger, or a colleague made a cutting remark. In that moment, it's easy to hold onto the pain, to replay their words in your mind and let the bitterness grow. But what if, instead of clinging to that hurt, you chose to forgive? What if you reminded yourself that their words were a reflection of their own struggles, not your worth? Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to forget or reconcile. It means you're choosing to let go of the emotional burden so you can move forward with clarity and calm. Let's take this idea a step further with an example. Imagine you're having a tough day and a close friend snaps at you over something trivial. their tone is sharp, their words unkind. Your first instinct might be to snap back, to hold onto the hurt, or even to distance yourself from them. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused and considered what might be going on in their life? Maybe they're dealing with stress, grief, or exhaustion. By choosing to forgive, you're not just giving them grace, you're giving yourself the gift of peace. You're choosing to respond with compassion rather than anger, and in doing so, you're breaking the cycle of negativity. Marcus Aurelius believed that forgiveness was a form of strength, a way to protect your inner calm from the chaos of the world. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, when you hold on to resentment, you're allowing someone else's actions to color your mind with bitterness. But when you forgive, you reclaim control over your thoughts and emotions, choosing to focus on what's good and meaningful in your life. So, here's a question to reflect on. Who do you need to forgive to find peace? Think about someone whose actions or words have left a mark on you. What would it feel like to let go of that hurt, to release the emotional weight you've been carrying? Forgiveness isn't always easy, but it's always worth it, because when you forgive, you're not just freeing the other person from your judgment, you're freeing yourself from the turmoil of holding on. This approach doesn't mean you have to tolerate mistreatment or ignore your own feelings. It's about finding a balance between standing up for yourself and choosing peace over resentment. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that forgiveness is a form of self-care, a way to nurture your mind and soul. By practicing this skill, you're not just responding to life's challenges, you're transforming them into opportunities for growth and inner calm. And that's a practice worth embracing, one act of forgiveness at a time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." This idea captures the essence of how reason can serve as a guiding light in moments of provocation. For Marcus, reason wasn't just a tool for solving problems. It was a way to rise above the chaos of emotions and see situations with clarity. When someone provokes you, it's easy to let anger or frustration take over, to react impulsively without thinking. But reason gives you the power to pause, to step back, and to ask yourself, what's really going on here? By engaging your rational mind, you can override the emotional storm and respond with calm and purpose. Let's break this down with a practical example. Imagine you're in a heated argument with a coworker. They've just criticized your work in front of the team, and their tone feels unnecessarily harsh. Your first instinct might be to fire back, to defend yourself, or to let the frustration simmer. But what if, instead of reacting, you took a moment to analyze the situation objectively? What if you asked yourself, why did they say that? Is there any truth to their criticism? How can I address this constructively? By shifting from emotion to reason, you create a mental space where you can respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Marcus Aurelius believed that reason was the antidote to emotional turmoil. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." In other words, when you engage your rational mind, you're no longer at the mercy of your emotions. You're able to see the situation for what it is, not what it feels like in the heat of the moment. This doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means acknowledging them without letting them dictate your actions. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine you're stuck in traffic and someone cuts you off. Your immediate reaction might be anger or frustration. But if you pause and apply reason, you might realize that the other driver could be in a hurry, distracted, or simply unaware of their mistake. By reframing the situation, you're not excusing their behavior. You're choosing to respond with calm rather than letting their actions ruin your day. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can reason help you stay calm when provoked? Think about a recent situation where emotions threatened to take over. What would it have looked like to approach that moment with logic and clarity? By practicing this skill, you're not just avoiding overreactions, you're building a habit of calm and thoughtful responses that can transform how you navigate life's challenges. This approach doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about finding the balance between acknowledging your feelings and engaging your rational mind. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that reason is a form of strength, a way to stay grounded and centered, even in the face of provocation. By cultivating this practice, you're not just responding to life's difficulties, you're transforming them into opportunities for growth and self-mastery. And that's a skill worth embracing, one rational thought at a time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." This idea of acceptance lies at the core of Stoic philosophy, and it's one of the most powerful tools for staying calm when life doesn't go as planned. For Marcus, acceptance wasn't about resignation or giving up. It was about recognizing what's beyond your control and choosing to focus your energy on what you can influence. When you stop fighting against reality, you create space for calm and clarity, even in the face of disappointment or frustration. Let's break this down with a practical example. Imagine you've been looking forward to a weekend getaway for weeks. You've packed your bags, planned your itinerary, and counted down the days. But then, at the last minute, the trip gets cancelled, maybe because of bad weather, a sudden work obligation, or an unexpected expense. Your first reaction might be frustration, anger, or even sadness. But what if, instead of resisting the situation, you chose to accept it? What if you reminded yourself that the cancellation is outside your control, and instead of dwelling on what you've lost, you focused on what you can do with the time you now have? This shift in mindset doesn't just reduce emotional turmoil, it opens the door to new possibilities. Maybe you use the weekend to catch up on rest, spend time with loved ones, or tackle a project you've been putting off. By accepting the situation, you're not ignoring your feelings, you're choosing to respond with flexibility and grace. Marcus Aurelius believed that acceptance was a form of strength, a way to align yourself with the natural flow of life. He wrote, "The universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it." In other words, when you stop resisting what you can't change, you free yourself to focus on what truly matters. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. You can't control the cars ahead of you or the timing of the lights, but you can control how you respond. Instead of letting frustration take over, you might use the time to listen to a podcast, reflect on your goals, or simply take a few deep breaths. By accepting the situation, you're not just reducing stress, you're reclaiming your power to choose how you engage with the moment. So here's a question to reflect on. What can you accept today to find peace? Think about a situation in your life where resistance might be causing unnecessary stress. Is it a cancelled plan, a difficult conversation, or even a personal limitation? By practicing acceptance, you're not just letting go of what you can't control, you're creating space for calm, clarity, and growth. This approach doesn't mean ignoring your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about finding the balance between acknowledging your feelings and choosing to move forward with intention. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that acceptance is a form of wisdom, a way to navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience. By embracing this practice, you're not just responding to life's difficulties, you're transforming them into opportunities for peace and self-mastery. And that's a skill worth cultivating, one moment of acceptance at a time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Begin each day by telling yourself, 'Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil.'" This practice of mental preparation was a cornerstone of his Stoic philosophy. For Marcus, anticipating challenges wasn't about expecting the worst. It was about equipping himself to face whatever came his way with calm and clarity. By preparing for difficulties in advance, he could respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively when provoked. Think about how this applies to everyday life. Imagine you're about to have a difficult conversation with a coworker or a loved one. You know the discussion could get tense and emotions might run high. Instead of walking into the situation unprepared, you take a few moments to mentally rehearse how you'll respond. You consider what they might say, how you'll stay calm, and what outcome you're hoping to achieve. This kind of preparation doesn't just reduce anxiety, it gives you a roadmap to navigate the conversation with confidence and composure. Let's take this a step further with an example. Suppose you're about to give a presentation at work and you're worried about how your colleagues might react. Some might challenge your ideas while others might seem disengaged. Instead of letting those possibilities rattle you, you prepare by anticipating their questions and objections. You remind yourself that their reactions are not a reflection of your worth, and you focus on delivering your message with clarity and conviction. By preparing in this way, you're not just bracing for criticism, you're building the mental resilience to handle it with grace. Marcus Aurelius believed that preparation was a form of empowerment. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, when you anticipate challenges, you're not avoiding them, you're turning them into opportunities to grow. This mindset doesn't just help you stay calm in the moment, it builds a foundation of confidence that can carry you through future challenges. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can preparation help you handle provocation better? Think about a situation where you felt caught off guard. Maybe it was a sudden criticism, an unexpected conflict, or a moment of self-doubt. What would it have looked like to prepare for that moment in advance? By making mental preparation a regular practice, you're not just surviving life's challenges, you're thriving through them with the kind of calm and clarity that Marcus Aurelius himself would admire. This approach doesn't mean obsessing over every possible scenario or trying to control the uncontrollable. It's about creating a mental framework that allows you to respond thoughtfully, even in the face of the unexpected. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that preparation is a form of strength, a way to stay grounded and centered, no matter what life throws your way. By embracing this practice, you're not just responding to provocation, you're transforming it into an opportunity for growth and self-mastery. And that's a skill worth cultivating, one prepared moment at a time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What injures the hive injures the bee." This simple yet profound statement reflects his belief in the interconnectedness of all people and the importance of compassion, even in the face of provocation. For Marcus, compassion wasn't just a lofty ideal, it was a practical tool for maintaining inner calm and fostering understanding. When someone provokes you, it's easy to see them as an adversary, to let anger or resentment take over. But compassion allows you to see their humanity, to recognize that their actions often stem from their own struggles or misunderstandings. By choosing compassion, you dissolve the tension and create space for calm and connection. Let's take a closer look at how this works. Imagine you're in a meeting and a colleague criticizes your idea in front of everyone. Their tone is sharp, their words unkind. Your first instinct might be to defend yourself, to fire back, or to let the frustration simmer. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused and considered what might be driving their behavior? Maybe they're under pressure, dealing with personal stress, or simply unaware of how their words land. By responding with compassion, perhaps by saying, "I appreciate your feedback." Let's talk more about how we can improve this together. You're not just diffusing the tension, you're also modeling the kind of calm and understanding that Marcus Aurelius would admire. This approach doesn't mean ignoring your feelings or letting others walk all over you. It's about finding a balance between standing up for yourself and choosing kindness over conflict. Marcus Aurelius believed that compassion was a form of strength, a way to rise above the chaos of the moment. He wrote, "Kindness is invincible, but only when it's sincere, with no hypocrisy or faking." In other words, when you approach provocation with genuine compassion, you're not just avoiding anger, you're building a foundation of inner peace that no external event can shake. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine you're stuck in traffic and someone cuts you off. Your immediate reaction might be frustration or even anger. But if you pause and consider that the other driver might be in a hurry, distracted, or simply unaware of their mistake, you can choose to respond with compassion instead of irritation. By letting go of the need to react, you're not just preserving your peace, you're also creating a ripple effect of calm that can influence those around you. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can compassion help you stay calm in conflicts? Think about a recent situation where someone's words or actions upset you. What would it have looked like to approach that moment with kindness and understanding? By practicing compassion, you're not just improving your relationships, you're cultivating a deeper sense of inner peace. And that's a skill worth embracing, one compassionate moment at a time. This approach doesn't mean you have to tolerate mistreatment or ignore your own needs. It's about finding the balance between standing up for yourself and choosing peace over resentment. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that compassion is a form of strength, a way to stay grounded and centered, even in the face of provocation. By embracing this practice, you're not just responding to life's challenges, you're transforming them into opportunities for growth and connection. And that's the kind of calm that truly lasts. As we wrap up, let's take a moment to revisit the key Stoic principles we've explored today. At the heart of staying calm when provoked lies the power of perception, the ability to see events not as they are, but as we choose to interpret them. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that external events are neutral. It's our judgments that give them meaning. By shifting our perspective, we can transform frustration into understanding and anger into clarity. Next, we delved into the dichotomy of control, a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. This principle teaches us to focus our energy on what we can influence, like our thoughts and actions, and let go of what we can't, such as the behavior of others. When we stop trying to control the uncontrollable, we free ourselves from unnecessary stress and create space for calm. Empathy also played a central role in our discussion. By seeing the humanity in others, even when they provoke us, we can respond with compassion rather than hostility. Marcus Aurelius believed that understanding the struggles of others is a form of strength, one that helps us rise above conflict and maintain our inner peace. These principles, perception, control, and empathy, are not just abstract ideas. They're practical tools anyone can use to navigate life's challenges. Staying calm when provoked isn't about suppressing your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about cultivating a mindset that allows you to respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. And the best part, this is a skill anyone can develop with practice. To close, let's turn to one final quote from Marcus Aurelius. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." These words remind us that true calm comes from within, from the choices we make and the perspectives we adopt. No matter what life throws your way, you always have the power to choose how you respond. Now it's your turn. Take a moment to reflect. How can you apply these Stoic principles in your own life? What's one situation where you can practice shifting your perspective, focusing on what you can control or responding with empathy? By embracing these lessons, you're not just learning to stay calm, you're building a foundation of inner strength that can carry you through life's challenges with grace and resilience. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more insights on Stoic wisdom and practical tools for living a calmer, more intentional life. Thanks for watching, and remember, the power to stay calm is always within you.